Hey guys, welcome back. So, we kind of forgot we have a 3D printer, so we're going to try printing this tool. So I designed this in Fusion, I forgot to even show you that. So I designed this little thing in Fusion 360. It's dirt simple. It's just like two round circles glued together essentially. And yeah, I normally have a heated enclosure. I mean, it looks horrible, but it's this little styrofoam thing that the printer goes in. And then it's got a heating system with a little PID controller. And it heats it up to like 60 or 70 C. It really helps with your print quality, but it wouldn't fit in my car. So for now, we're printing without it. And we actually did a test piece a second ago, and it kind of started off rough, but it got better. So we restarted it, and I could already tell it's printing better. For some reason, this thing does that. Anyway, this is our tool, so this will only take about an hour and a half to print. So we got this running, and we're gonna let it go and see what happens. Hopefully it prints a good tool, and we'll be able to use this. If it doesn't, we'll machine one. Because that kind of sounds like fun too, but it's also cool to see if this works, because this is easy as hell. I designed this part in 5 minutes, or whatever. It's just a couple circles. So doing the printing, making this is a Preso Mark II, I think. So they have a really easy software, so it takes like 3 minutes to make G-code. So basically, if this works out, it'll be less than 10 minutes. Then you just tell it to print. So real easy, very quick. And check this out. How cool is that? You just literally print the thing you need. Pretty neat. Anyway, we'll let you know how this turns out. So we're printing. Let's see. Oh yeah, 29 minutes so far. And this is what we're looking at. Still going. So this part is the big part. This is like 3/8 of an inch thick. I made it kind of thick, hoping that when we start pressing on it, we don't break this. So that's printing. It looks like it's about a 1/4 inch thick right now, so it's still got a ways to go. But it's doing good. I mean, look at I don't know if this will really focus on the camera, but the diameter looks pretty clean on the outside. So yeah, should have a part soon. Alright, so this has been printing a little over an hour. You can see we're now printing the step in the design. So basically the bottom section you see is for strength, and that's where we're going to press on. And then this very outer lip out here, right here, that outer lip, that's what's going to push on the bushing. And the piece that's printing now, the smaller diameter, this is what keeps it centered in the bushing so the piece doesn't move on me when I'm pressing on it. So, it's looking good. Check it out, part's finished. So it actually finished at 1:21. This clock just keeps ticking. Anyway, there she is. Bushing removal tool. There we go. That's it. Yeah, let's see if it has a chance of working. Let's see, here's the new bushing. Look at that. 3D printing is great. Let's check the diameter. So I believe we were shooting for, what was this? This part has to clear the bushing, so the bushing, yeah, sorry, camera. Okay. Bushing's 2.13. This should be like 2.12, I think, or 2.11. Looks like 2.11 maybe. Alright, so that's a little bit smaller. We know this part fits, but this is supposed to be 1.99. Look at that. 1.985. I mean, that's within 5 thou. Just literally right off the printer. That's great. Well, here she is. Let's hope it works. Well, that was easy. So I got this little Arbor Press. Actually, my buddy John bought me this as a birthday present. So, first time this thing saved the day. So we put the pump in here. You can see the bushing, I just knocked it out, but just threw the pump in, pushed on it, and I mean, look at the plastic. You can barely tell anything even happened. Looks fine. So it worked good. We got the bushing out, presumably without screwing it up. So if we have to, we can put it back in there. Alright, well, now we're gonna pop the new one in. Alright, so this is the old one. I just measured it. It still measures 2 inches, and this one still measures bigger. So now I'm kind of worried when I press this in, it's going to be looser. But since we have it, we're going to pop it in anyway, and we'll measure and see what happens. Alright, so here's the setup. Got the new bushing in, got it lined up where it goes. Our little tool and a couple sockets. Let's see if this works. Yeah, I don't think I can do this one-handed. Alright, so news. Not sure to say good, bad, or what, but so the new bushing's in. It went in pretty easy. This little plastic tool got a little more damage on it from putting it in. I ended up tapping on it with a hammer to get it started because this thing, I think it's called the throat or whatever, but that distance from the back to the center isn't quite big enough to get centered on this. And so it was pushing crooked, which worked for pushing it out, but not for getting it started. So I ended up tapping it a little, and that screwed the plastic up a bit, but it worked great nonetheless. Got this bushing pressed into the same depth and same orientation. So this depth, I have pictures of it. That's how far it was pushed in before. And that oil feed, I put this white mark. That's where the original little cut for the oil feed. Here's the old bushing. That's where that one stopped, is at that paint mark. So those are in the same spot. So we got the bushing in. That went smooth. It did shrink, which we were hoping for, but it did not come all the way to 2 inches. So there's a couple spots that measure 2 inches. And then I'm also seeing 2 thou over and 3 thou over, depending on where you measure. So this one is a little bit looser, not quite as round, and a little bit looser than the original that was in there. But it doesn't have any damage on it like this one did. So we're gonna run it. I don't think a couple thou is really gonna matter. And this one was fine, so I bet this one will be good too. So anyway, now we're going to do some final clean on the pump, the gears, the bolts, all this stuff. I'm going to have to Google how to, like, torque specs and stuff so I can get this thing put back together. Alright, so here's the oil pump. We just took a knife blade and ran it around all the surfaces to get that gasket removed. And I'm sure a little bit of debris fell in all these holes, but who cares? Not just kidding. We're going to take an air gun and spray all that out. Brake parts cleaner, whatever it takes. Make sure we get all the junk out of that. And now we're doing the case. So this one has the gasket, the same thing. It's all stuck. So I jammed a bunch of rags in here. I'm just going around with a blade and cleaning it up. Alright, check this out. We got this all cleaned up. So I just took a razor blade and I got a little acetone in this little bottle. And some clean white rags. I went around here. We stuffed this with rags. Took a blade, scraped that thing clean. We had a vacuum right here. A buddy of mine, Marshall, recommended, so we just used a vacuum to basically vacuum up any tiny debris that was still there and then carefully remove that rag. And I don't really think anything fell in the transmission, but looks good. So I'm going to cover this back up. I just took this off to film, but I got another clean rag that keep that covered. Now we're going to, so this is final clean. So we're going to final clean this housing, final clean those gears. I might put this bearing back in here before I forget where that goes. Yeah, this little guy goes there. Yeah, let's do that before we forget. But yeah, we're going to final clean all the parts of this pump, reassemble the pump, and find out what the torque spec is and get this thing put back in the transmission. Alright, so we just got all this stuff final cleaned. This housing's final cleaned, both gears, and whatever you call this piece. We blew out all these holes. We got an air gun out, really blew them out several times, went through a can and a half of brake parts cleaner. So I feel confident this stuff's clean. So I'll have to begin reassembly. Leveling these up a little bit. So this outer gear, this one, had a little bit of a wear pattern on this side that matches the wear pattern down here in the pump, so I know that that side of the gear, I was keeping up with those, but I ended up mixing them up and now I don't remember which way to go. But I should be able to just match it up based on the wear patterns. So right now we're just oiling all this so that there's nothing dry. There's this gear. You can see these little circumferential marks match the marks in the body, because this side looks slick. There's really no marks on this side. So I know this gear goes here. I don't know if I can do this part one-handed, but I can find out. There it goes. Cool. Now let's look at this gear. A little bit of marks on that side, more on this side. So this side goes down. Yeah, see all the marks there? Flip it over, hardly anything. So this gear goes like this. Pretty easy. There it goes. Cool. Alright, so we put that in the vise, just lightly clamped it so it'll stay put. And it looks like we need to put this piece on into that. Which, now that I look at it, the shaft's just going to run into the bottom of the vise. So, still don't have a solution for that. Now we'll figure something out. Alright, so here's what we did. We had some little blocks of aluminum, so I threw those up here and clamped them down, or clamped the oil pump to those to the table to give us some room so we can actually put this thing together. So, now we should be able to bolt this up and not run into that problem. So we got our bolts put in. We torqued them to 20 foot-pounds. Might rethink that. Maybe we'll torque them a little higher. Couldn't find a spec, and that's probably not a good reason not to torque them to spec. So I guess I'll pause and Google it some more. But I looked for a while. I couldn't find the spec. Not the pump to the case. I know what that is. But these bolts, those are the actual pump itself. I don't know what those are. But when I took it apart, they weren't that tight. So I just kind of put them back about where they were. And we just put our new seal in the front. Looking good. A little bit different type. I actually prefer this old one. So this old one had a flange on it, and that makes it a lot easier to remove. Plus it sets your depth. You just knock it in until it stops, which this one did too, to be fair. But anyway, got the new seal put in. So technically this pump's ready. I'm going to Google search the specs one more time on those bolts, see if I can find a better number. Otherwise we're probably going to leave these at about 20 and get ready to put this new gasket and put this back on the trans. Alright, good news. I looked forever. I finally found the specs. So it's actually called this, stator support to pump. That's the bolts I was looking for. And funny enough, the spec is 12 to 20 and we torqued them at 20, so kind of got lucky. We just guessed I thought they felt like they were torqued to about 20 when I took it apart. So I guess the torque measuring arm caliper thing is pretty well calibrated. So good, I feel comfortable with that. Now we'll put this pump on the case.